Hello, and welcome to the BOFIN Buzz, the podcast for anyone fascinated by farming's future.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of the BOFIN Buzz. For this episode, we're bringing something a little bit different for you. Our usual host, Tom Allen Stevens, joined Steve Orchard over on the Farming Programme podcast to discuss innovation on farm and gene-edited crops. Join us as we take a listen to a short snippet from the podcast. You can listen to the full episode by going to hellorayo.co.uk/podcasts/farming programme. I'll leave this link in the description for you. Okay, well, let's get into it. Enjoy.
Well, Steve, I'm no scientist, but the way I understand it is that with genetic modification, you're actually taking a piece of foreign DNA and putting it into an organism, a plant or an animal, whatever. And that is creating something that wouldn't have happened naturally. With gene editing, then what you're doing is you're going to a very precise place in the genome and you're making a small cut. And it's the sort of edit, it's the sort of break in the genome that would happen naturally under any sort of stress that the plant might come under, like drought or radiation or whatever. And it's the sort of thing that creates genetic variation anyway, but you're creating it in a very specific place. It's an edit that could happen naturally. Well, the edit actually happens when the plant heals itself, when the genome heals itself, and it makes a slight change in the genetic makeup, and that's what brings the trait that the plant breeders are very interested in.
The object of the project is to improve things. This is a project funded by DEFRA. What is the overall objective?
The overall objective of this is to take some of these new cereals that are coming out from our research centres, take it from 1 kilogram of seed to 100 tons and take it through batch processing. The reason for that is that some of the traits that are coming out with some of these new plants that they're developing don't actually manifest themselves until you actually make a food product. So, for example, we've got one of them that has got these very interesting properties about how it processes and the level of acrylamide that comes in the end product, in the end food product, which is a product of processing, of baking or toasting, basically. It's a very, very low level of acrylamide, which is a known carcinogen that appears in this wheat. And so it's not until we actually take it through processing, and more importantly, batch processing, so take large volumes through, the food manufacturers will actually understand what the qualities are, whether it's a really interesting wheat that they have there.
So you're really needing to ramp up the numbers here so that you can put it into production and therefore see what happens when the production process goes through.
That's right. So take it from, as I say, 1 kilogram of seed to 100 tons, and that in itself is quite a process. Actually, it's a process that happens every year. By the way, that's what we do within the industry. Plant breeders and farmers and so on. Well, I say every year. It takes a good 3 years to do that, and that is really what PROBITY is all about. It's putting in place the process that can take these seeds from 1 kilogram right up to 100 tons for batch processing.
Who's involved in the project apart from yourself?
The main research partners are John Innes Centre and Rothamsted Research, and they really lead in this country on this type of plant breeding work. They've got some really exciting lines that they're bringing on, and we're bringing the first 3 of those lines onto farms. We've also got Aberystwyth University involved. They're looking in particular at one of the lines that has this very interesting ability. This is for a forage that produces a high lipid forage. And that has very interesting implications. It's barley that we're working with there, and it's actually been developed by Rothamsted, but Aberystwyth are looking at the genetics of that and seeing whether they can transfer that into grasses. But this particular barley, it's got a high lipid content, and that's really exciting for livestock producers. So high lipid forage, so that we can reduce methane emissions. Apparently, the figures that you can get from high lipid forage in terms of reduced methane emissions and higher energy forage as well, higher productivity, are really quite exciting, and that's what we want to look at in that part of the project.
So in terms of, if I was to ask you how are gene edited crops better, really we're talking about better productivity and greener.
Absolutely. That is exactly what we're looking at here. And we've talked about two lines there, the low acrylamide wheat and then the high lipid barley. We've also got another wheat, and this one's really interesting. It produces a bigger, bolder grain. This is an edit that's come from John Innocenter. This one is really exciting for us farmers, actually, because the question is a bigger, bolder grain going to produce more yield? Is it going to produce better quality? Well, we don't know, and we won't know until it comes into field trials. And so we're working with Dyson Farming on that one, who are going to be doing they do some really, really exciting small plot trial work. They're going to pull this apart. They're going to look at the agronomy in all different aspects and work out just how to feed this crop, how to look after it, what the agronomy is, in order to really pull apart this interesting characteristic it has of bigger, bolder grains, because it could rewrite the rule book on how we feed our plants.
You want farmers to get involved in this
Yeah.
project. What do you actually want them to do?
Well, in 2026, we're going to have enough of the seed. We'll have multiplied up enough of the seed to actually put out onto farm. So we're going to be looking for 25 farmers to grow it up, to produce the 100 tons, basically, of what we're looking for of each of these three lines, by the way. That's for 2026. And so we're actively looking for those farmers who are interested now, really, to come and join. Although they won't actually get the seed until 2026. But in the meantime, we want to get the discussion going. And this is another really important part of the project, Steve, that, we know that there are concerns about this technology, as well as opportunities as well. And we want all of those, to come out into the open. We want to have that discussion. The whole point of this is to have an open and transparent forum in which to bring this technology forward and talk about all the concerns that we have, as well as all of the opportunities, all the benefits, and so on and so forth. Have that out in the open, and really have that discussion. So we're asking people to join. We've setting up a forum this autumn called the Sequence Circle, where we want to have people, we want to bring farmers together to have the discussion. We want to bring scientists there. Anyone else who's interested, actually, any of your listeners, indeed, who are interested. We're due to start that forum in November, and we'll be looking at that. We'll also be analysing all of the views that come through on that, just so that we can get a really, really good understanding of how people feel about this technology, and particularly farmers and the food industry.
So you're not saying gene edited crops are actually here, but we're a step closer and working
Absolutely.
towards it.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's so important. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be farmers who are going to be growing these in their fields. Farmers are not going to put them in their fields unless they have the confidence that there's going to be the market acceptance for them, and that there aren't going to be unforeseen consequences. We want to have that debate. We want to put them out in the air. We want to look at that in a research environment, with all of the scientists and so on involved as well, and DEFRA and everyone else, so we can really look at this objectively, open and transparent, so that we can really assess what the value of these crops are. And at the end of the day, I've already spoken to a lot of our members, our BOFIN members, and we've done a lot of work with our members, finding out what their views are of these crops. And some of them are really, really excited about it, and some of them have got serious reservations. They say we're just going to be repeating the mistakes of the past, and that is the thing. That it's not for all people, this technology, but we won't know who will like it and who won't like it until we actually bring them out into the open, put them on our farms, and put them under scrutiny.
Because there's lots of discussion, isn't there, about food security within the UK, or our lack of it.
Yeah.
Could this potentially be not the answer, but an answer to those problems?
Well, I think it possibly could do, but and that's exactly why we want to take it through the field trial. So let's take that bigger, bolder grain, for example. As I say, we don't know yet. We haven't grown up enough of it to be able to know whether the thing that it's got a bigger, bolder grain is actually going to turn into more yield and more quality. But I think that is where the farmer's art comes in. Growing these crops, understanding, how, when you put on the nitrogen, when you put on the various other inputs, what sort of tillage, what sort of seed rate you apply, when it comes to harvest and things like that, all of these sorts of things, because it has got a fundamentally different physiology in the ear. We're talking about something that could grow completely differently and require a different approach. And that, as I say, is where the farmer's art comes in. And those farmers who understand how to feed a crop and bring it to a really high yield, that's where we can start getting some really big gains.
Fascinating stuff, Tom. If somebody's listening to this and thinking, sounds very interesting, I'd like to have a chat, where should they go?
As I say, we're starting the sequence circle. As I say, the sequence circle itself won't be up and running until November, but please do join us and stay up to date with the with the project as it develops. If you go to probityproject.co.uk, then you can sign up.
Tom, thank you very much for that. We'll keep an eye on how this goes over the months and years to come. But Tom Allen Stevens, thanks for joining us on the farming programme this morning.
Not at all. Thank you very much.